when I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
Jameson Williams has been so impressive these last couple of weeks. What's going on, draft fans? Welcome back to Cover One, the NFL Draft Podcast. I'm your host, Russell Brown, and we are back for another audio edition of the show. Not this past week, but the weekend before, we brought out the very first scenario Sunday of the year, where basically on a Sunday afternoon, I'll record an episode of the podcast. I'll drop it on Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're getting your podcasts these days. And basically, I broke down the teams 1 through 4, and we talked about the Jets at 10 as well because they pick 4th. And we broke down basically some scenarios, some of the players. And we'll get back into that this coming Sunday. We'll go teams, 5 through 9. We'll talk a lot about that stuff. But this is the week of the Combine. So the last couple of days, been doing some Combine prep. And while I'm not down in Indy, got a lot of colleagues down there. Got a lot of people that are well-respected in the league down there, obviously. And we have about 325 prospects down at the Scouting Combine. So lots of things to get into. For example, Matt Corral, quarterback from Ole Miss, not throwing down at the Combine. Unfortunate. One of those things you don't want to see, but he's still kind of recovering from that ankle injury that he suffered. And maybe in the pro day in a couple of weeks here, within the next month or so, he'll be ready to go for Ole Miss and kind of showcase what he can do. But I will say, Evan Neal, potential first overall pick, not participating in drills at the Combine. So one of those things. We'll see how fast he is, how freakish of an athlete he is in the coming weeks. With that, we've got a whole Combine preview here where we're going to talk about the potential rumors that have kind of come out through the first portion of the week. A lot of media stuff today, and there's a lot to get into. Pro Football Network has a great article out there ran by Aaron Wilson, who recently joined Pro Football Network, very well connected, and a lot of rumors coming out of the Combine, like I just said, and there's a lot here, and I want to start at the very top. Just looking at this article and some of the things that we've seen come out today and really over the last couple of days. For example, the Chiefs, they want to re-sign Orlando Brown, the offensive tackle. They traded for him, not this year, but the offseason before, and they brought him in from the Ravens. And general manager Brett Veach said, with Orlando, we're going to work hard to get a deal done. I would have to think he's probably going to re-sign with the team. I don't know. The estimation, the prediction is it could be a long-term deal, maybe around 5 years at about $116.6 million. So a lot of money for the potential long-term answer at left tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll see how it plays out for him, but it's one of those things where do they have the cap space to make a move this big? Because you are paying a bunch of money to Patrick Mahomes. You do have Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce on the cap. You're now adding $116 million. Tyrann Mathieu set to be a free agent here, and could they bring him back? Very well, they could, but it's very tough to say. It truly is tough to say on what they do, but obviously you hope that if you're a Chiefs fan, he's staying. I would agree. I would think that this makes sense, but we'll see what happens. The Bengals, their plan is to potentially place the franchise tag on Jesse Bates. We'll see. The franchise tag deadline is on March 8th, so they've got about a week to figure this out. It's 4 p.m. next Monday. They haven't necessarily broken any news on this, but their general manager, Duke Tobin, said he's an important part of our team. We drafted him. He's a guy that's developed and that has played well, that has a real role on our team in a lot of different areas, particularly his leadership and playmaking skill. He's a guy we want going forward. We want as a part of our group, and so we'll see what we can do to get that done. So They recently extended cornerback Jalen Davis down there in Cincinnati. Obviously, they're working through, and they're going to try to get Jesse Bates. Now, if they do, the predicted value for the franchise tag there is at $13.5 million for safety. So a pretty good payday for a year, and you would have to hope for just that 1 year you can lock him up to a long-term deal for 4 or 5 additional years on top of that tag. But Jesse Bates is a stud. And the Bengals are in a spot where, they could, if they miss out on keeping Jesse Bates, they could draft a safety at 31. Maybe Daxton Hill, Jaquan Brisker. Highly doubt Kyle Hamilton's fallen that far, but, crazier things have happened. But, they're in a good spot, right? Like, there's a lot there. We all can agree with the Bengals, as much as they want to bring back Jesse Bates, rightfully so, they've got to get that offensive line in gear. I mean, it's just what it boils down to. That offensive line is atrocious. It's got to get better, and you can't have Joe Burrow getting sacked 70 times. It's just simple as that. So hopefully they figure that out. The big one, I think, today was the Colts. General manager Chris Ballard, very in between on quarterback Carson Wentz. It's only been a year. It hasn't really panned out, but when he was asked about it, he says, I don't know. We're still working through it. I know I'm going to get a lot of questions about Carson right now, and I don't have a direct answer for you. We're working through it. We'll sit down over the next 10 days and figure out where it's going. Ultimately, we'll do what's in the best interest of the team in the short term and the long term. He also says it comes down to trust. Ultimately, you've got to have a guy that you believe in and can win with. And to me, this is the writing on the wall in the nicest way possible. That's him simply saying this is not our guy. And I think it was very obvious a couple of weeks ago when the season ended and things like that. It's just evident that they are going to go in a different direction. There's no, we appreciate Carson, we could do a better job of building around Carson. There's none of that. It's simply, this is not working out, and we need to move forward. And that's what they're going to do. I don't know what direction they go. Are they the team that makes the splash move for Jimmy Garoppolo? Maybe. Are they the team that somehow finds a way to land Russell Wilson? Maybe. I don't think any of that's, I think the Jimmy G thing is possible. I don't know about the rest. But if they're not going that route of a superstar quarterback or Jimmy Garoppolo, what the hell are they doing at quarterback? Because Jacob Eason's not the guy. You're not rolling with Jacoby Brissett. I don't know what the Colts are doing, but they definitely paid the price for Carson Wentz, and after a year they're done. It's just very evident. If they keep him, I would be so surprised. The next rumor on this here, Packers expected to talk contract numbers with Preston Smith's rep at the Combine. This one's interesting because Preston Smith had 9 sacks last year, and he's in the final year of a 4-year deal. He's got almost a $20 million cap hit for this year. So it would make sense to why they want to do something. If you've been paying attention to the Packers over the last couple of weeks, maybe the last week or so, they've been doing a bunch of extensions and things within the cap to take cap hits, turn it into bonuses, paying things up front. They're doing a bunch of different things to basically clear up money to probably re-sign either Devontae Adams or make Aaron Rodgers the highest paid quarterback in the history of the league. In the game right now. I shouldn't say in the league, but in the history. I should just say in the league right now. Because I highly doubt he's getting a $500 million contract like Patrick Mahomes. But with that being said, this one's interesting because they have Zadarius Smith. The rumor it feels like since the season ended over the last month or so, is that he's probably done with the Packers. They're going to probably move on from him. So can they make a deal here where maybe they get Preston Smith for another 2 to 3 years, re-upped on some nice deal? Probably. But if they don't, with both Smiths gone after potentially, after next year, after this next season, there's a possibility of some serious issues within this organization as far as getting a pass rusher. So that they'll be interesting to pay attention to in the draft when it gets to that point. Arnold Ebiketie from Penn State, potentially on their radar. I could see that, and I think that'd be a great fit, and rightfully so. One of my favorite players in the draft would end up being a Green Bay Packer. So we'll see how it goes. But moving forward, the Giants running back Saquon Barkley might be traded this offseason. General Manager Joe Scone, is it Scone? I think it's Scone. Joe Scone. He kind of raised some eyebrows during a 15-minute interview today. He said, I'm open to everything. I'm not going to say yes to every deal, but I'm going to listen. And the question that has been coming up is James Bradbury and Saquon Barkley don't necessarily know what's going to happen with either one of those guys, but they could very well be in the market to move Saquon Barkley, get potentially a pretty decent haul for him, obviously, because if he's healthy, he could be one of the league's best running backs. But the Giants are an interesting team, man. 5-7 on the draft board. They're going to do some damage there. Free agency, they could do some things, but they got some pieces there that they could really move. And Barkley, Bradbury. Could it be a 1-year deal for Kenny Golladay and they move him? It's possible. Anything's possible. I don't like that contract for a player that, one, can't create separation, and if he doesn't have a quarterback, I don't think he can do what he's supposed to do. But we'll see. The Giants, interesting. We'll get into them on Sunday with draft scenarios with picks 5 and 7. So Cowboys staying in the NFC East. Some news there. Mike McCarthy dropped a little bomb today that Dak Prescott had cleanup surgery on his shoulder after the season, on his non-throwing shoulder, or non-throwing shoulder, I should say. It was bothering him, and he basically said it's not a concern. We have no concern. He's doing well. So, Prescott had 37 touchdowns in 2021, completed almost 69% of his passes. Nice. But he is somebody that, at the same time, not winning some of the big games, and injuries are starting to pile on a little bit. So you got to have some concern. Speaking of quarterbacks, there is probably a team out there that maybe is speaking quarterbacks more than maybe any team in the NFL outside of maybe the Carolina Panthers and the Indianapolis Colts. That is the Denver Broncos. They met with several quarterback prospects at the NFL Combine, including Malik Willis and Kenny Pickett. George Patton, the general manager, who, even though he's got Drew Lock under contract, Teddy Bridgewater's probably gone, and there's no guarantee that they can even land Aaron Rodgers. So with that, he was asked, general manager George Patton was asked today, I think it's always a priority. We're talking about the quarterback position. It's the most important position in sports, so we're always looking with no stone unturned to find that guy. We know we need better play out of the quarterback position, so we're going to be aggressive. He then goes on to say, we don't care if it's a trade. We're just going to exhaust all options to try to get the best guy for the Broncos. To me, that's you're revealing your hand. We're going quarterback at 9 if we can't trade for one in the next month and a half. If we can't land Aaron Rodgers within the next month and a half, or some type of veteran QB, Jimmy G, maybe they're the team that lands Carson Wentz, whatever it is, this is their way of saying QB at 9, or we're moving up and getting a guy, something like that. It makes too much sense to not do that. So I could see them getting aggressive, going from 9 to 5, getting in front of Carolina, ensuring that they get their guy, whether it's Pickett, whether it's Willis, maybe it's Ritter or Howell, I don't know. But with that, the feeling I got and some of the information I got out of Mobile was they're pushing to try to get Aaron Rodgers. That's what I got. I don't know how accurate that is. I'm not a fly on the wall, but that's the information I got. We'll see what happens. But they're going to push for Aaron Rodgers. I think that's pretty evident, and it's evident with getting Nathaniel Hackett. Hackett even talked about quarterbacks at the Combine. He was asked just, basically about the position, and he says, I think for a quarterback, the most important thing is they have to be tough. They have to be tough with the mental and the physical, the stresses they go through, just being able to stand in front of so many different people. Then you look at the physical aspect of it, to be able to take hits, because even if when they're perfect, you're going to be hit, and it's a long season. That form of toughness and then intelligence, the ability to be able to call a play, we have long play calls, and to be able to understand the different defenses to get you in a perfect play, and then accuracy, those are the 3 ones. And if you're lucky, you get an athletic guy too. So kind of a mouthful there as far as what he's talking about when it comes to that position and what he thinks is best for the position. But, I mean, kind of a general answer, but is the guy, probably rooting to get Aaron Rodgers? Absolutely. But, again, I could see them falling in love with Pickett, Willis, maybe Matt Corral, again, some of the other quarterbacks. So we'll see what happens there. Other than that, I mean, that's kind of the big the big news as far as what we saw out of the scouting combine today. Not going to be doing a show tomorrow because we will be doing the live show on Thursday. And on Thursday, we'll talk some of the results because we will have some results because tight ends, quarterbacks, wide receivers run and test and do all that stuff on Thursday. So we'll have some things that we'll be able to talk about, but it'll be a lot of preview stuff. We'll recap a little bit. We'll take some of your questions on the Thursday show on YouTube. So if you're interested in that, you got to go over to Cover One on YouTube and you'll get that information. But real quick, I wanted to touch briefly about who I think is going to run the fastest, right? I mean, that's the question mark everybody wants to talk about. Who's going to be the fastest? As far as who's going to jump the highest, honestly, I don't know. I really don't know who's going to jump the highest. I don't know who's going to have the best hips with the 3-cone drill and things like that. I would have to think, Aiden Hutchinson's probably going to be one of those guys up there, just silky smooth athlete. As far as the rumors go, he was one of the freakish athletes. But from a speed perspective, I got a couple of picks here from the straight line speed, from the 40-yard dash. Kalyn Barnes, Baylor. It was mentioned by Dane Brugler on Twitter of how fast he ran the 100-meter dash. And the speculation is he's going to run potentially in the 4.2 somewhere. He ran a 100-meter dash as a senior in high school at 10.04 seconds. So there's a chance. There's a very strong chance that he could be blazing speed. I mean, we're talking blazing 4.2 flat type of speed. It's going to be tough to do, a lot of pressure, but we'll see. A couple of other names to just kind of pay attention to. Memphis wide receiver Calvin Austin III. He's a speedster, former track and speed guy. I think he could test really well. Keep tabs on Tariq Woolen from UTSA, the corner. He's listed at 6'3", checked in, I think, at the Senior Bowl at 6'3" as well. But he was rumored to run specifically a sub 4.4 type of 40. But I think there was some stuff where it was clocked that he was like in that mid 4.3 range, like a 4.35. So keep tabs on him if you're into like defensive backs and things like that. A lot of these guys fly around. I mean, these defensive backs are quick and they move really well. So, could we see a potential surprise? Yeah, I think we could. I mean, I really think Kyler Gordon from Washington is going to have himself a really good week. I think that's been, and that's been kind of rumored here for the last couple of days, is he's going to solidify himself as a first rounder. I believe that. I think Nakobe Dean is going to test off the charts. I think he's going to check in maybe a hair over 225. I'd love to see him at like 227, run a 4.4 flat or something, a 4.45, a sub 4.5 time. I'd love to see just great numbers for him and solidify himself as the top linebacker. I really think that's possible. That's, defensively. Again, Aiden Hutchinson, I think, is going to do a really good job from some of the 3-cone drills, the bench press. I mean, he's going to hit over 30 reps on the bench, which is possible. I'm curious about, again, Arnold Ebiketie, very fluid athlete, fluid lower body, flexible. So I think 3-cone drill, he might take it from a defensive line perspective. From the offensive line, Cole Strange, the interior offensive lineman from Tennessee Chattanooga. Really curious where, obviously the bench press is with him. There's been some rumors that he's going to have a great week, and obviously it's all very possible. Tyler Smith from Tulsa, there's been some first-round rumblings with him and his draft stock. I think if he has a good week and tests well, as he didn't really make like that official announcement he's declaring for the draft. He just kind of entered the draft, and we all kind of had to speculate on whether he was going or not. But from a 40 time, from a 3-cone time, from a shuttle time, and again, just from how he looks in drills, I think if he has a good week, he could be somebody that moves up boards because there's some interior offensive lineman flexibility with him that people are intrigued with. I like him at tackle. If you can clean up some of the hand placement, some of the footwork stuff, we'll see. Outside of that, some of the skilled guys from like I said, Calvin Austin, keep tabs on him. Keep tabs on, Velus Jones from Tennessee. I think, he might not necessarily run a 4.3 flat or something like that, but I think he could test pretty well. I am curious, Wandale Robinson from Kentucky, how does his numbers look? Christian Watson, he's already had a really good draft season, but I'm just really curious, can he solidify it with a strong showing? Justin Ross from Clemson, how's the numbers going to look for him? How's everything going to look on the field? There's a lot of intrigue with him because he, has first-round type talent. He just hasn't been healthy enough to put himself in that first-round conversation. So we'll see. And then just running backs real quick. Quarterbacks, not too worried about, some of these guys. Like I think Malik Willis is going to run, a low 4.4. I could see maybe in the 4.5s. I think Desmond Ridder could run really well. I do think, Sam Howell's going to probably run maybe a sub 4.7. I don't think Matt Corral's doing any of that stuff. I think he's saving that for the pro day. Kenny Pickett, I still, 4.65, 4.7. Let me go ahead and look up Derek Carr's numbers real quick because I think it's going to be damn near spot on to what Derek Carr did at the combine. A 4.69, like I said, a 4.7, probably in that range for Kenny Pickett. But from a running back perspective, Tyler Algier from BYU reminds me a little bit of Damian Harris. If he can run in that, 4.5, 4.55 range, I think would be really good for him. Jerome Ford is going to move a lot faster than people think. One of the times that I found on Jerome Ford from track and field days back in high school, his personal record is a 10.5 flat. So there's some speculation he's going to run a sub 4.4, and I mean you're talking about a much bigger running back. You don't see that stuff with guys of his size, and I really think he could be a big riser here this week. I mean, listed at 220, the dude can run. Could he be a sub 4.5 guy? Maybe. I mean, it's very possible, but I think he's going to run. He's going to test really well. Next after that, Kenny Walker from Michigan State, Isaiah Spiller from Texas A&M. Really curious how these guys do. Isaiah Spiller ran the 100-meter dash in high school at 11.25 seconds, so nothing crazy, but he is 6'1", 215, and him and Walker are just really good at the line of scrimmage, finding the openings, pressing, bending, and just getting those cutback lanes. So that stuff's important, and they, I think, accelerate really well through the second level, have some explosiveness there, and then meanwhile, they understand how to run with their pads. They understand how to run in control, and they're fine with dropping their shoulders and doing those things. So I'm really curious with those two because I think they're kind of that consensus running back 1, running back 2. That's how it is on my board with Walker leading the way. But I think that they're going to, they could test really well. And then Brian Robinson, how will the numbers look for him? Sometimes a very upright runner, but very flexible lower body. Ronnie Rivers from Fresno State, the dude can ball. He might go undrafted, but he could very well have a great week at the combine as well. But it's going to be interesting. I mean, this is the time where it's officially draft season. Everything feels just so real and legit right now where it's like, man, we are knee deep in this. And just from a sports fan perspective, I mean, we're approaching March Madness. The MLB season is obviously taking forever to get here. We've got the MLB and the NBA the NHL and the NBA wrapping up their seasons within the next month and a half. And it's just, weather's starting to break. Things are starting to feel good. It's draft season. Look, I'm bummed I'm not down in Indianapolis. I'm going to try to do a show potentially Friday and get a guest or two on to just get their thoughts from the scouting combine. We'll have some more information on that following Thursday's live show. But we're going to have some fun on YouTube. And, of course, we'll be doing the audio stuff all throughout the draft. So you guys need to stay locked in here. And again, we're going to keep you covered with everything. So you just have to simply find the Cover One NFL Draft Podcast on Spotify, Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. Just rate, review, and subscribe to the show. And, enjoy the combine. I'll be tweeting about it, so if you want to talk to me about what you're seeing, what you think, find me on Twitter at RussNFLDraft. But until next time, this is Cover One, the NFL Draft Podcast.